We continue. Okay. Chapter 24 of the laws of implements, kalim, vessels, things. Number one, these are the hides that can contract the impurity associated with the support of azov midras. A hide that is once intended to use as a carpet. So midras, things that you step on, things that you would lean on, that you would lie on, sit on. Right. So someone who's a zov, as we've explained, the zov is someone who has um, an emission, not a seminal one, but a different is a zov. So they will make something impure. So now we're talking about hides, that contract impurity. So a hide that was intended to use as a carpet, right? It's functional, right? And it's meant to walk upon. A high place on top of beds, that's to lie upon, to sleep upon. A high place on a donkey, to ride upon. Under the burden it carries, or it's even for the burden. A high place on the bassinet under a baby. A high used for a pillow. That's a pillowcase, I guess. A hide used for a cushion. A hide placed beneath the table while eating so that the crumbs will fall upon it. All of them are susceptible to impurity because one leans his foot upon it, right? So it's made in such a manner, right, to lean upon or to use his feet upon. A hide worn by a potter, a hide worn by a flax carder when he cards flax, a hide a porter places on his shoulders when he's carrying a burden. So these are all, it's giving just examples of things that are an implement that are made out of leather, a hide, that are susceptible to impurity. A hide which a doctor places on knees when he's puncturing boils. These hides are susceptible to impurity because the person will sit upon them. Others, they're used in a function, they're used for a function, but in a function that you're sitting or you stand on it, right? And that's the idea of medras. A high placed over a child's heart upon which spittle descends so that the clothes will not be spoiled. What's that called? A bib, right? Yeah, today we have throwaway bibs. Back then they made them out of leather. A hide meant to place over a person's heart during the harvest because of the heat. I don't know what that means. It seems to me that that would create more heat. A hide wrapped around a garment, and a hide sewed onto a chest on which clothes are placed, are all susceptible to impurity. The rationale is that they are all turned upside down and used as supports. And these last ones, I don't know what that means exactly. They're used as support. They're used as a functional way, and therefore they're susceptible. All the hides that are susceptible to midras of impurity are not susceptible to an impurity unless they are the minimum size of 5 handbreadths, 5 handbreadths. That's the size. This is a handbreadth, right? So 5 by 5 is the size of the leather that it needs to be in order that it's susceptible for impurity. The following hides are not susceptible to midras impurity. A hide a person who combs wool wears while combing. A hide wrapped around combed wool. A hide wrapped around fine purple cloth, and a carrying case for fine purple cloth sewn from leather. All these hides are susceptible to other types of impurity. I guess because they're not made, I'm not clear, for support or anything. Second, give me a moment. You're not precisely clear on that. Okay, halacha number 3. When leather was made into a cover for a kli, it is pure with regard to all types of impurity. What chapter? All right. 1-4. Uh-huh. Halacha 3. If it was made as a cover for weights, it's susceptible to other types of impurity because it was made to serve as a receptacle, that it's not susceptible to midrash impurity. A cover for something is not considered a function, right? It's covering something that's a functional item, but it itself is not a functional item, right? Functional means that there is it's covering a vessel, an implement. It's not being used by the human for the human. So the human, if he would sit on it, lie on it, get support from it, right, from that implement, so then it can become impure through, that's called medras. Medras means, some kind of support, either standing on it, sitting on it, lying on it, right? But here, this is a cover for a vessel. It's not something for the person. So it's not an implement for the person. And it's not an implement because it's a cover for an implement only. That's how I'll call it an implement, right? So therefore, it's pure. Therefore, it's not a functional thing, even though, it's serving a function because it's covering something, but it's covering a something. It itself is not a something in that respect, or not what we call an implement, right? But if it's made to cover weights, then susceptible to other impurity, and that I'm not clear because it was made to serve as a receptacle. Aha. So here it's different because there was a cover. It's not a receptacle. A receptacle. Anytime it's a receptacle, and that's what a vessel means. A vessel means a container. So for the weights, it was a container, even though it's a covering for something, but since it's a receptacle, so therefore it's susceptible to other types of impurity, but not medras, because it's not for the human engagement. That's a distinction. I hope that was clear. Yeah? Good. A hide made to protect one's heel and the sole of one's foot covers the greater portion of the foot is susceptible to impurity. If not, it is pure. So here, a hide sounds like almost it's like a whatchamacallit, a sock, right? It's protecting the heel and the sole of one's foot. So if it's the greater portion of the foot, then it would be susceptible because then it's being used as medras for the person, right? Yeah. But if it didn't, if it wasn't for the majority of your foot, then it'd be pure. The shoe that is on the mold, even though it has not been worn by a person, yet it is susceptible to medras impurity because the task associated with it has been completed. So we've learned, when does something become susceptible to impurity? So remember, it needs to be an implement. So, well, a shoe is an implement. Implement in the sense that it's got a function for a human, right? So the shoe You didn't wear it yet. Obviously, when you wore it, then it's functional for the human, right? But even when it was just on the mold, but it's finished, all the stitching has been done, everything has been done for the shoe, that moment is susceptible to impurity. Right? So it means, of course, that if it was, if it was in a place where a corpse, human corpse, it becomes impure, right? And it means you just can't go to Jerusalem with that pair of shoes unless they become purified, right? They need to be sprinkled the third and seventh day with what we just learned in Tanya, right? With paraduma, right? The red heifer. Just tie it in with that. All right. Wow. God does run the world, huh? Everything's connected. Amazing. We're good so far. Okay, all hides that are fit to become susceptible to midrash impurity and are not lacking the performance of any task to make them functional except become susceptible to impurity through thought alone. That means if he intended to use it as a mat for a table or the like, it becomes susceptible to midrash impurity. Right? So here you just had the thought to use it. That makes it susceptible. That's how powerful our thought is. If the performance of a task is necessary to make it functional, one's intent does not change their status until the task is completed. Like with the shoe, right? If the shoe is not completed, so it doesn't matter that you are going to wear it as a shoe and you intend to do that. It needs to be completed. So it's a functional implement. There is an exception. A hide that is to cover a saddle to guard it from dust. In this instance, the person's intent has an effect even though the deed necessary to make it functional has not been completed. Why is that? With regard to what does the above apply to hides owned by a private person? Hides owned by a leather maker, by contrast, can be assumed to be set aside for sale. Hence, one's intent does not have an effect on their status unless one performs a deed with them, preparing them to serve as a support. Aha. Right. So if you're selling it, then it doesn't matter what your thought is because it's you're not really thinking to use it. You're just thinking to sell it. Right. But if it's the owner of it, the thought that he wants to use this as a saddle, right, to protect it from dust, that thought alone makes it already susceptible. Okay. Okay, a person does not impart midrash impurity to a surface on which he lies or sits unless it belongs to him. Ah, so I can't make someone else's, if I was impure from something, right? So I can't impart on a surface if I lie on it unless it belongs to me. So as the verse says, the one who touches his couch, right? You're lying on your couch, you can make it, right? But not someone else's. If one obtained a surface on which one lies through robbery or use it as a support without touching it, it is pure. If the owner despaired of its recovery, it contracts impurity because then it's not his anymore, right? It's the thief. It belongs to him. He has to pay back. He owes now money, but the item is his because he despaired from recovering it. If it is known that the owner has not despaired, the surface is pure. Therefore, if the thief stole a hide intended to use it to lie on, his intent alone is sufficient to change the status, and it can contract midrash impurity. The intent of a robber, by contrast, does not change the status of the article unless the owner despairs of its return. So a thief, right? A thief is different because a thief took it at night, not in front of people, right? And now he wants to lie on it. His intent alone is sufficient. But a robber, by contrast, does not change the status of the article until the owner despairs. I'm not clear of the difference there. I understand. I'm missing something. Does it say there in? See.
Sound like for the thief, it was immediate, but for the robber, he had to despair.
Yeah. No, no, I get that. No, I get the distinction, but why? Why should there be a distinction between a
Right.
robber?
True, true.
Okay, so the difference between a theft and a robbery in halachic terms is follow. A theft implies taking another person's property discreetly, as I said, right? And by contrast, a robber is he's taking it openly by force. So therefore, it is likely that the victim will be aware of the identity of the robber and hope to recover the article from him, but not aware of the identity of the thief. Therefore, his despair recovering the article will be immediate. Aha. Okay. That makes sense. I don't know why I didn't catch that. Right. So the thief, you don't know who it is, so you despair. Therefore, he can make it impure, make it susceptible to impurity because it's his, right? He despaired. Whereas the robber, you know who the robber is because he did it at gunpoint. So you know who it is, and or you hope you didn't despair. That's the point, right? Okay. And therefore you have a hope to get it back. Therefore, it's still the thing is yours, not the value. Of course, the thief also has to pay back. It's not that's the issue. The question is, does he have to pay back money or the thing? Once you despair, it doesn't. It belongs to it belongs to the thief. And now he has to pay the value of it rather than the thing itself. Interesting. Okay. When a hide contracted midriff impurity and the owner began tearing straps from it, it remains impure until its size was reduced to less than 5 by 5. Right. Once it's less than 5 by 5, then right, that's a minimum size of leather, of hides, and therefore it's not right. It becomes pure. Number 9, the following rules apply to all leather kalim that have been contracting midriff impurity from a zav and afterwards were fashioned into another type of kli. If the leather article was changed from one flat implement to another, such implement remains impure. If it was changed from a simple implement to a receptacle, or from a receptacle to a simple implement, it is pure. With regard to articles from cloth, everything is impure. Huh. Why should that change it? Because it's a different item. With a receptacle means it's a different item, a different item. So then it's like when you break something and now you rebuild it, it's a new thing. So here you changed it from a simple implement. Fascinating. So it's like a new thing. And when you make something new, it changes its status and it becomes pure. What does it imply? So if one made a leather drinking pouch into a rug, right? Or a rug into a leather drinking pouch, it is pure because you change it from one thing to another thing, right? A rug is simple. Now you made it into and folded and made it into a drinking pouch. So you changed its status. If, however, the drinking pouch was made from a satchel or from a satchel to a drinking pouch, they are considered as impure due to midras and they were before. A leather drinking pouch was made to a satchel because they're both implements already.
What's the satchel?
Huh?
What's the satchel?
A satchel
Same thing.
is like a pouch.
Okay, similar, so that's why they are that way.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they're similar things. They're not from a flat to a vessel to flat, right?
That's
Here
what
it's
happened.
vessel to vessel. So even though it's a different, but it's still of the same category. So therefore it didn't change. Number 10, when a cloth pillow that contracted midris impurity was made into a cloak was made into a pillow, a cushion or a garment was made into a cover, or a cover was made into a cushion, they remain impure due to midris as they were before. Because they're both flat. You didn't make it into an implement. It didn't become a vessel, right? A pillowcase, or,
That's the vessel, but not the pillow itself.
yeah. Number 11. Okay, the following laws apply to articles that are fundamentally made to function both as receptacles and surfaces on which one can sit or lie. For example, pillows, cushions, sacks, carrying bags, if they were damaged and unable to hold substances, even though they are pure with regard to susceptible to the impurity associated with the human corpse and other impurities because they no longer fit to serve as receptacles. They are still susceptible to midras impurity, for they are still fit to serve as supports. So they can support you, but they're not considered a proper vessel. As a vessel, they're not, but as a support, right? They're still okay because, in other words, you could use that cushion, you could use that sack maybe as riding the animal or something like that. It still has a support in some manner. Different rules apply when, by contrast, kalim that are made primarily to serve as a receptacle, meaning a drinking pouch or a satchel, if they are large enough, that they are fit to sit upon, since they are sat upon due to the size, they are susceptible to midras impurity as long as they are intact. So even though they were a vessel, now they're being used as, not in that manner. They could be, but they're still susceptible because they have the capability of being used in another manner. If they are damaged and unable to hold substances, even though they are still possible to sit upon, they are not susceptible to midras impurity. The rationale is that they are made primarily to serve as receptacles. Since they became unfit to serve as receptacles, they become pure and are not susceptible for any type of impurity, neither midras nor any other type. What is the measure that makes these kalim, these vessels, subject to midras impurity? A drinking pouch, 7 kabin. A carrying case, 5 kabin. A feeding bag in which barley is hung from the head of the animal, 4. A leather sack with which water is poured, a saw. Anything less than these sizes is not fit to be used as a support and are not common to be used by people to sit upon. Right. So if they were damaged and one bound up the damaged portion, they are pure because now you made it into some broken and you fixed it. If it was damaged portion was not tied closed, the damaged portion was not tied closed. If all the drinking pouches that were damaged and bound closed are pure, except those of the Arabs, because it was always their practice to bind them closed. A bagpipe is not susceptible to midras impurity because it's not common to use it as a support.
Where I live.
Yeah,
Arabs is like ancient.
yeah. All right.